Welcome into Cougar Tracks here on the KSL Sports YouTube and KSL NewsRadio, your legacy home of the Cougars. I am your BYU Insider, Mitch Harper. Happy to have you on board of the show wherever you're listening or watching the program today. It's a Wednesday edition of the show. That means we have a fresh new set of college football playoff rankings to unpack. So let's dive in the top story of the day.
The top story of the day. The biggest story in the world of BYU sports right here on Cougar Tracks.
After BYU's blowout loss to Texas Tech, College Football Playoff Committee, they were not impressed with the Cougars. The eye test did not favor BYU. This week in the playoff rankings, BYU falls from number 7 last week to now number 12 in the latest playoff rankings. That's a 5-spot drop this week. Pretty extensive drop. That's big. I mean, that's 1/5 the poll. 25 spots, that is a sizable drop. So the committee, which has leaned heavily into eye test, they said their eyes don't lie. BYU was outclassed against the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Here's the entire college football playoff top 25 rankings for November 11th. The number 1 team is Ohio State. They stand pat. 2 is Indiana. 3, Texas A&M. 4, Alabama. 5, Georgia. Texas Tech gets left out of the top 5, but they do make a 2-spot jump. They leapfrog over Ole Miss, which I thought was noteworthy after Texas Tech takes down BYU. The Red Raiders are now number 6 in the rankings and maybe within reach, potentially, of a top 4 seed in a first-round bye, because I think Texas Tech deserves that. They're one of the best teams in college football. I believe they could be national championship good. Texas Tech is outstanding. Ole Miss 7, Oregon 8, 9, Notre Dame, 10 is Texas. That's Notre Dame and Texas are the first 2-loss teams that appear on the rankings. Then Oklahoma, another 2-loss team, and then BYU 8-1 after that loss to Texas Tech. Rounding out the bracket is the highest-ranked ACC team in Miami at number 15, and then USF, the group of 5 projected champ, number 24 out of the American Athletic Conference. So BYU would be left out of the playoff, but when you look at these rankings, I think it still sets up quite well for BYU to control their fate and potentially reach the college football playoff. I think if BYU wins these 3 games to close out the regular season, they're going to the playoff, no matter what happens in the Big 12 championship game. Now, the only catch to that would be if BYU played Texas Tech again and got blown out again. That's where maybe you'd be sweating it a little bit. But I think if 11-1 BYU goes to the Big 12 championship game, they're in. Then it becomes a matter of they're playing for seeding to possibly have the chance to host a home game in Provo. If they lose and it's, a 2-possession game, something like that, I think they're going on the road, maybe a 10-11 seed, somewhere in there, but they're in the playoff field. And I think what's interesting in the rankings here, in these rankings, BYU is 1 spot ahead of Utah. Utah, to me, at number 13, they're one of the hottest teams in college football right now. They've kind of bolstered their metrics after crushing a pair of teams, one of which was Cincinnati. Cincinnati checks into the rankings at number 25. So 4 Big 12 teams, still the fewest amount of ranked teams from one conference in a power conference. The ACC has 5, but their highest ranked team is number 15. So more top-end teams in the Big 12, more just numbers in the ACC with 5. But I wonder about Utah, how honestly how much higher they can actually go, because their schedule, they've got Baylor this week, then Kansas State at home, and Kansas. No ranked teams left. BYU still has Cincinnati. I think BYU has room to climb, and with teams in front of them likely going to beat each other up, and potentially if Pitt can knock off Notre Dame, now Pitt would catapult up the rankings this week if they did that. But I think BYU's in a really good place. I think it comes down to BYU just taking care of business in November, which has been a tall task for this BYU program since joining the Big 12. BYU's only 2 wins in the month of November since joining the Big 12 were last year against Utah and then against Houston, 2 teams with losing records. They have not beat a team with a winning record in the month of November yet as a Big 12 member, and that just elevates the importance of this week's game against the 6-3 TCU team, and we'll talk more about TCU coming up a little bit later in the program. But I think BYU's in a good place. I think there would have been an argument to be made for BYU to be 10 or 11. You know, Texas is a team that got a lot of talent, sure, star rankings, all of that. They've been living on the edge a bit. They hammered Vanderbilt, and that was a really impressive win by Texas. But up until that point, they were kind of living on the edge. The calling card that everyone applies to BYU, oh, it's lucky, they get by barely, they escape games. That kind of applied, I think, to Texas in many respects throughout this season until they kind of turned the corner against Vanderbilt a couple weeks ago. Notre Dame's really good. I think Notre Dame is one of the best teams in college football this year. They had those 2 early season losses, but I do think that Notre Dame is really good. You just like to think, though, that 1 loss is better than 2, and it'll be interesting to see how teams are sized up that have the 13th data point if they reach that conference championship game compared to a team like Notre Dame who kind of passes the eye test, and their 2 losses are to really quality teams in Texas A&M and Miami. But BYU's loss is to a really good team as well. So it's not like BYU has had some bad loss that sinks their metrics. Same with Utah. Their 2 losses are against Texas Tech and BYU. I think the Big 12 is in a good place to get 2 teams into the playoff. But BYU's got to take care of business. It all hinges on BYU. I struggle to see a 2-loss Utah in the regular season, 2-loss Utah getting into the playoff with no marquee games down the stretch remaining. They have to have a lot of chaos with the Notre Dames, the Texases, the Oklahomas to lose some games. And then the ACC continues to beat itself up for maybe a chance for Utah to get into the rankings, but you always got to be fearful of another SEC team climbing, a Big Ten team climbing. USC is just kind of hovering. Same with Michigan, who lost to USC. So there's so much football left to be played, but I do believe that BYU is in a really good spot when it comes to this playoff chase, and that's exciting because that performance on Saturday against Texas Tech was miserable. BYU got outclassed. The defense showed up, and the red zone defense was excellent, and that was one of the knocks Baylor AD and College Football Playoff Committee Chairman Mack Rhodes cited against putting Texas Tech at the number 5 spot was their red zone offense. Again, they can always find data to justify their rankings. Keep that in mind. And I think that's why Cougar fans get very worried about these rankings. Let's be honest. When you hear this music, you're scared. You're frightened. These top 25 rankings come out. This music's playing. You're thinking, oh no, they're going to get faded. BYU's going to be falling down the pole. And that's what happened on Tuesday when they dropped all the way down to number 12 in the latest college football playoff rankings. But with 3 games remaining in the regular season, you win those, you get to Arlington. I think you're going to be in the college football playoff 12-team field this year by simply getting to Arlington. You get to that game, you are going to be in the college football playoff. That's the task in front of BYU moving forward. Let's take a break. More Cougar Tracks on the other side here on KSL News Radio and the KSL Sports YouTube page. Welcome back into Cougar Tracks here on the KSL Sports YouTube. Every day, Cougar Tracks is available to you Monday through Friday, and then, of course, on the weekends with post-game reaction shows. Cougar Tracks is daily. You hear all the audio from the coaches, the players throughout the week, basketball and football. We've got you covered with Cougar Tracks here on the KSL Sports YouTube and wherever you get your audio podcast. Leave a 5-star rating and a review. It'd help out the show a ton. So BYU basketball last night. I was at the Marriott Center for the first time this season. Obviously, I missed the home opener because I was in Lubbock. So Cougs took down Holy Cross last Saturday for the home opener. Then they had another home game, closing out a 2-game homestand against the Delaware Blue Hens. And credit to Delaware, they made this thing tough. Delaware had a 13-point lead in the first half on BYU. Delaware was up throughout the entire first half. BYU didn't get their first lead until the second half, but once the Cougars got that lead, they pulled away. They at one point had a 23-point lead, but then ultimately improved to 3-0 with an 85-68 win over the Delaware Blue Hens. And I got my post-game reaction on the podcast feed, which you can listen to here on Cougar Tracks. So go check that out or watch it on the KSL Sports YouTube page. What really impressed me was BYU's big three can carry the day. 70 points from those guys, and Richie Saunders, 26. Rob Wright, a Delaware native from Wilmington, Delaware, he dropped in a career-high 26 as well. And then A.J. DiBonsa, 18 points, had 2 electric dunks, one of which a putback that had the Marriott Center fired up. That was exciting to see, but I do get a little worried about the production from the rest of the team. You know, Keba Keita ends up with 8, but most of his stuff is coming off of putbacks. Then after Keba, you got 7 points, and that's from Dawson Baker, who got his first career start, and then Mihailo Boskovic, 4 points from Mihailo, only 1 field goal make from him. Dawson Baker was 1 of 5 from the field. He had 6 boards, though, in his first career start as he stepped in for Kennard Moo Davis, who was dealing with an Achilles tendon soreness. He's expected to be available soon, according to Kevin Young. So I'd expect that he would play against UConn, but we'll see officially later in the week from Kevin Young and this BYU basketball team. But they need more players to help with the scoring output. I feel confident that Richie and AJ and Rob Wright are going to perform every single night. You know, there's going to be some nights where Richie, even on the first half on Tuesday, Richie started slow. That's what's amazing about Richie. 26 points on a game where in the first half, he goes 2 of 6, 0 of 3 from three-point line, and then he drops 20 in the second half. This team can score in bunches. When they get rolling, man, it is a sight to see this offense operate. And Rob Wright, a paint-touching guard that he is, where he can attack and get to the rim, his moves are straight filthy when he's in the paint. It is just a dynamic guard to the likes of which we've never seen before. It was promising, too, that in the second half, BYU's three-point shooting finally came to life this season. 11 of 20 in the second half, knocking down the three ball. Because I believe that this team, we know their ability to get to the rim with AJ and Rob and Richie Saunders and Keba around the rim as a rim rolling 5. We know all that. They can get to the rim. They got to do a better job finishing those layups. They were about 7 of 14 in the first half on layups. It seems 50%. Okay. I just thought there were some missed opportunities where point blank shots hit them. You got to finish at the rim at a higher clip. But to me, this team, what makes them so deadly and so dangerous in the national landscape is their three-point shooting ability. And for the first few games, and including the exhibition, the three-point shot just wasn't there. And in that second half against Delaware, it finally started to click from three-point range. And that's exciting for this team because heading into the showdown against UConn on Saturday, that is going to be dynamite, must-see TV for a basketball game in the month of November. To have the feel good, like, hey, shots are falling. That gives you a little bit of momentum, a little kick in your step going into a big game. So I thought that was a nice showing by BYU. I thought the rebounds were important to see too. 46-25. BYU out-rebounds Delaware by 21. Delaware was shorthanded. They even lost one of their key players in the second half to an injury. So BYU pulled away, got a nice win. It wasn't anywhere close to the projected spread. That was 35.5. BYU only ends up winning by 17, but still, you get a win by double figures. And even Kevin Young acknowledged when asked, was there a little bit of look ahead? He just straight up said, maybe. I appreciate the honesty because you can't tell me they weren't looking ahead, these players, possibly to UConn. Now, if that happens going forward, it's going to bite you eventually because all these teams in D1, they've got some players that can, for stretches, cause some headaches. So good lesson for this group to face a little bit of adversity. I never question the outcome being in doubt, but hey, take every game serious in this path that you're on to try to reach heights that this BYU basketball program has never reached. But Cougs are 3-0, and they have a massive game coming up on Saturday against UConn. Number 3 Huskies versus number 7 BYU. Top 10 clash at the TD Garden in Boston. 5 p.m. tip, 4 o'clock pregame on KSL NewsRadio and televised on Network Fox. Huge game. First top 10 meeting for BYU, top 10 matchup for the Cougars since 2011, the Mountain West Conference Tournament Championship against Kawhi Leonard and the San Diego State Aztecs. Remember that year, BYU had 3 top 10 meetings against Kawhi and the Aztecs that year. BYU got the 2 regular season wins. They lost the game in Vegas where Kawhi and crew ultimately got the Mountain West Conference Tournament crown. But BYU was in 3 top 10 meetings that season. It's been 14 years since BYU has been in a spot like this, and to go up against a blue blood. UConn is the program of the 21st century. They've been incredible. And even recent history, Danny Hurley took them to greater heights when they had that lull in the American Athletic Conference and they transitioned into the Big East. They're home. They have taken off to the heights that you just expect UConn basketball to be at, and they're really good once again. Last year, kind of a little bit of a transition year, trying to three-peat, ended up getting an 8 seed. They gave Florida everything they could handle in the round of 32, but now it's a really good team again, and they look poised to be a contender to maybe cut down the nets again. So if BYU could get that win, man, the expectations will be through the roof for BYU hoops. BYU football, they've still got high expectations too. And being around practice yesterday, I think the vibe is just, I think this team is just antsy to get back on the field and kind of right that wrong from what happened last week against Texas Tech, because that wasn't pretty. And TCU is an interesting team, 6-3 coming into this game. And I caught up with a TCU Insider to kind of get to know the Horned Frogs and what we should know about this team as they head into Provo, a program that BYU fans are well versed in, but they haven't showed up to Provo since 2009. This is my conversation with a TCU Insider to get to know the foe, Horned Frogs edition. Welcome back into Cougar Tracks here on KSL News Radio and KSLSports.com. BYU football is getting ready to host the TCU Horned Frogs, an old Mountain West rival making their return back to Provo for the first time since 2009. And to get a look at this TCU Horned Frogs squad, I'm joined now by JD Andress, lead beat writer for TCU on SI. You can follow him on X at JD Andress11. JD, appreciate you being on board. What's kind of the mood around TCU football after a tough loss last week to Iowa State?
Yeah, man, that's the question that everyone's asking the fans themselves. I mean, there's not much right now that they're feeling great about. I mean, even the players, you look at them, you talk to them, and they're not exactly who they were at the beginning of the season. 3 tough losses on the year. You lost to Arizona State in a heartbreaking second half collapse. You went to Manhattan, got embarrassed there in Kansas State, and then you lose to an Iowa State team that's completely depleted. But I will say for now, a lot of the guys that are on this team still are older. A lot of them are playing in their last year. So a lot of them are just playing for pride right now at this point. And sometimes that trumps anything that you're playing for as far as competition wise. But man, I mean, I don't think there's been a low this bad since the loss to Houston last year, whenever they were just completely upset at home right before a bye week.
And I'm glad you brought up that the pride piece, because I kind of wondered, in college football nowadays in this 12-team playoff, once you get to like 3 losses in league play, it feels like, is there going to be guys keeping a wandering eye to maybe the portal in a couple months? So you feel like this TCU team's gonna show up still and give it their best effort on Saturday in Provo?
Yeah, I feel like they should. There's not too many injuries that they're going to have to worry about as far as what's going on around the team. So a lot of these guys, they're really just trying to go out, play with each other for their last few games. I mean, at this point, what we talked about before the bye week was they're playing for potentially a 10-2 finish and maybe backdoor their way into the Big 12 championship. And now they're fighting to essentially not finish 6-6, having to play you guys, then Houston, then Cincinnati. So there's a lot of good teams still on the schedule. So if you're going to roll over, then it's not a good time to, and some scores might get ugly here at the end of the season.
In all 3 of TCU's losses this year, they've had at least 3 turnovers. How big of an issue has turnovers been this year for the Horned Frogs?
That's one of the weird situations because turnovers as a whole really haven't been an issue. It's like he's talked about, just in the losses is does TCU have the turnover problem? I will say for the turnovers for this weekend with Iowa State, Josh Hoover was wearing a glove for the game, which he normally doesn't do, and he said it took a little bit of adjustment. So that led to 2 early interceptions. He was lights out other than that. And then a fumble from Jeremy Payne, third string running back, you could argue. I mean, it's just a lot of bad luck. Hoover's had a few fumbles on a few missed pulls. He's had 2 interceptions that have turned over from tipped balls. He's had a fumble that resulted from a screen pass that just completely bounced off the receiver's arms straight onto the ground. So I don't think TCU has a turnover problem as more as it's a bad luck turnover problem, and you can't do anything about that.
Talk with JD Andress of TCU on SI, getting to know the TCU Horned Frogs. And Josh Hoover, BYU fans know him all too well. 2 years ago, he put up a massive performance. I think still a career high for Hoover in terms of passing yards in his career. How has he evolved from, that game where he had a breakout performance against BYU 2 years ago to now?
Yeah, it's funny. It's kind of all full circle. That was his collegiate debut as a starter in that game against BYU. And you've seen him evolve a lot since then. Last year, you saw him with the big arm and his big ability to make plays, but he had to figure out a way to cut down on his interceptions. He would take too many deep shots instead of taking a safe option when it was needed. Now you're seeing him take the safe option, and you're not seeing him escape out of the pocket. You're not seeing him take as many deep shots as he did last year. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. He's become a safer quarterback, if you will, but he hasn't became the explosive deep ball quarterback that he was before. But I mean, that's to say, I mean, he's still 10th in the country in passing yards. Like he's got a not number 9 receiver in the country. Like he's still doing everything he does. This offense just is still struggling to click completely the entire length of a game. And I don't think that's Hoover's fault. I think there's other issues around it, but I think Hoover's taken a step up from what he was when he started, but he's not 100% what you envisioned when he took over.
I'm curious, JD, how much of the issues and maybe lack of clicking on the offense this year is tied to the offensive line, or is it other factors?
Yeah, I think a lot of it you can put it on the offensive line. You're looking at Colton Deary, who's been banged up since like week 4 of the season, hasn't been 100% healthy. The left guard, Cade Bennett, has been completely banged up since like week 1 of the season, and he's still playing. You lost your left tackle during week 2 of the season, went to a torn MCL. Like you're playing with guys that are banged up, and I know everyone is, but like TCU doesn't have a lot of depth along their offensive line, and they like to rotate guys in. And so right now they don't really have the ability to do that. You saw the offensive line against Iowa State last weekend, and their first half performance was a really, really big struggle for them. But they were without starting center Colton Deary. In the second half, when he came in, it was a completely different offensive line. Their average rush per attempt went up almost a full yard just from him coming into the second half.
Talking with JD Andress here on TCU on SI on Cougar Tracks on KSL NewsRadio. BYU and TCU kick it off at 8:15 p.m. Mountain Time right here on KSL NewsRadio and ESPN. And I'm curious, JD, too, about the the TCU defense. What are the strengths and weaknesses, and maybe some key players that BYU fans should know about?
Yeah, I'll tell you the key player right now is Caleb Elarm-Zor. He's a middle linebacker. He's just a complete hybrid type. He could play safety if you need him. Could play, cornerback to cover a slot position. He could play the outside linebacker role. He can just do it all. He's really, really effective in his role. He's great at covering sideline to sideline. He's great in pass coverage. But the secondary as a whole, TCU is known to be a great secondary school. This year, they've kind of taken a step back in that department. Um, Bud Clark, one of the best safeties in TCU football history. He had 2 interceptions last weekend. Like, he's starting to pick things back up where he was last season. Devin Deal, outside linebacker, he's been one of the best at generating pressure on the defensive side. He's really kind of grown into this role that used to be a hybrid role of dropping into pass coverage versus just pass rushing. Now he's essentially just mainly pass rushing and doing a great job at it. The defensive line isn't going to blow your socks off, but what they do a really good job of is playing contain and being able to just plug the holes that they need to. This defense has taken a big step up from where they were last year when they were one of the worst in the conference, and a lot of that is just the guys that they expected to have back did come back and did take the step up. You're looking at Devin Deal, Caleb Elam-Zor, Bud Clark was back. So this defense has pieces, and they've been playing really well. And they're partly the reason TCU has been so effective in games. The West Virginia game, they were lights out. Iowa State, they were lights out. The biggest question for this defense is, can they play a full 60 minutes? Once they hit about 50 minutes of the game time, they kind of start to struggle, and you see a different set of team in the last 10 minutes.
And I'm curious as well, if TCU wins this game, it will be because they did what on Saturday night?
Probably just had to outscore BYU because TCU hasn't had a first quarter touchdown in, I believe it's like not 12 quarters, 11 quarters, something like that. It's been a long time. They have not been very good at scoring first quarter touchdowns. And that's something that they can't do against BYU. Against West Virginia, they started out slow. Against Iowa State, they started out slow. You can't have that, especially against a team the caliber of BYU, especially playing on the road against BYU and how great their fan base is and that atmosphere. If you're TCU, you had to have gotten off to a good start and you had to have kept your foot on the gas. You're not going to be able to win this game in a 21-18 showdown. This TCU defense is good and they're capable of limiting, Bear Bachmeier and BYU as much as they can, but not for a full 60. The offense will have to be the one that wins this one.
Very intrigued with this matchup on Saturday night. And JD, what do you remember, if anything, on the old days of BYU and TCU from the Mountain West years? Do you remember those? And do those memories still carry over for some Horned Frog fans?
It's funny you actually mentioned that. I was looking at some discourse on X, the public app, everyone's on it, and there was a lot of BYU fans that were like, I will always be afraid of TCU for what they did in the Mountain West days. And there is something with that. Same with like the rivalry with Utah and Boise State. Like, those are great days, but this isn't the BYU the Mountain West days, and this isn't the TCU the Mountain West days. So as much as I wish it was, it's not, unfortunately.
Yeah, the BYU fans have they've taken some big L's to TCU, whether it was the Mountain West, Independence, and now Big 12 2 years ago. So BYU hasn't got a win over TCU since 2007. They'll look to get that win on Saturday, and TCU will look to get their season back on track, get to 7-3 if they can get the upset win over BYU. JD, appreciate the time. You can follow him on X, JD Andress 11, and check out his bylines on TCU on SI. Looking forward to the rest of your week's coverage this week, JD. Thanks for the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Welcome back into Cougar Tracks here on KSL News Radio and the KSL Sports YouTube page. Mitch Harper with you. Had the chance to catch up at practice with BYU wide receiver Jojo Phillips, and before I had a conversation with Jojo, BYU receiver Parker Kingston grabbed the mic, and he had a question for Jojo.
So, Jojo Phillips, how was it being back in your first game at Texas Tech?
It was good. I was happy to be back out there with my guys. Everybody, I missed being out there. It was getting boring being at home, just watching my guys. But it was good, though. Not the result we wanted, but it's okay, though. We going to get back.
Exactly. I don't know what else to ask.
Parker, are we that basic in the media? Are we that basic? I'll admit, though, that was one of my questions at top of mind, and here was my full conversation with BYU wide receiver Jojo Phillips.
BYU football getting ready to take on TCU, and here now with Jojo Phillips. And Parker kind of stole my question. What he asked you, just here we had a moment, just for people that didn't see it, we had a moment where Parker was asking you with the mic how it felt to be back. Just revisit that. How did it feel to get back and to be back on the field?
It was really good. Obviously not the result that we wanted and not the result how I wanted to come out there and perform, but it's okay though. We're going to get back, regroup as a team and everything, and push our best effort forward for TCU and the rest of the season. But it was just fun though, just getting back out there with my guys and being on the field, traveling, and just suiting back up and doing all of that because, I was at home for the past 9 weeks not being able to suit up or anything. So,
well, when you talk about that Texas Tech game, what was the most for the offense, just the most frustrating part of that game?
It obviously be us just not really executing to the full potential like we've been doing, and just not being able to move the ball and like just get on the scoreboard. I felt like, but we learn from film. We know what we messed up on. We know the things we need to fix. And it's going to be better, and we're going to just keep going the rest of the season. So.
When you brought it up, when probably didn't like how the way you played or for that game, when there is moments where it maybe wasn't the greatest performance for the whole offense, like how do the coaches respond to you guys, like in practice moving forward? Is it more strict, or is it the same approach they've always taken the whole season?
It's just really the same approach. Kalani talked to us on Monday, and he was just telling us like the one word that really stuck out to me is just urgency. So just urgency the whole week, just breaking the huddle, just our practice tempo, getting in and out of the huddle. If we're running off the field, getting to the sideline, just urgency. Everything just play with urgency and all that. So
when you left with due to an injury back at the Stanford game, what were you dealing with that caused you to be out, and how was the build up to get back to the field?
So I broke my left collarbone, snapped in half, so I had to get surgery and everything. And then just once I found out I had to get surgery, it's kind of like down because I was expecting this season like to be like a good season for me and everything. And then, but yeah, just once I had my surgery and everything, I just knew it was time to just get better at other aspects in life and everything, and to help my team, just find other ways to help my team get better and still help and still be out here and be involved and everything. So, but just the first 2 weeks, it was really boring because I was just sitting down, couldn't really do nothing, couldn't move my arm or anything. But after we got past that time, everything was better. I was able to start lifting again, start just getting back out here with my teammates and all of that. So,
how did you stay engaged with the offense and just everything that's going on with this team? What did you do when you were away to make sure that when your time would be arrive again, that you were ready?
I didn't miss no time. After my surgery, I came out here the next day to practice actually, and I was still just fresh out of surgery. Came out here the next day because I just wanted to be out here still around and let them know I still have their back and everything since I'm out. But it was just really just having a script in my hands during practice every day, just still knowing the plays, being engaged with the plays and everything, and just showing up to film and meetings every day and still being engaged and still knowing what we're doing, so that when I do come back, I still know everything that we're doing, and just still on top of my plays and everything.
This week, you guys are looking to bounce back to get ready for TCU. Mm-hmm. What's kind of the demeanor of this offense this week? Are you guys taking Kalani's words to heart with the urgency?
Yes, we are for sure, and just going out there and dominating our plays and executing to the full ability like we're used to and everything, and just the way they were doing before I came back and everything. So that's basically it, just executing and just fixing the mistakes we made last week and not making those mistakes anymore down the road.
What's been your thoughts of Bear when you were watching him on the sidelines, while you're recovering from the injury, and also just his demeanor this week bouncing back from a loss?
Well, just watching Bear, just always see that he's poised and he never gives like anything. He never gets too high or too low. So I just seen that from him like during that game also. Like even though we were down, he would still have poise. Every time he came into the huddle, it was, let's go guys, like just giving us words of encouragement, like keeping us up and everything. So yeah, I just see the same thing from him, just poised Bear, never getting too high or low.
Your thoughts on TCU's defense?
It's a pretty good defense. I was here in 23 when we played them, so it's a lot of like similarity kind of from that year. But they have a good defense. They have a lot of good players all around, so it'll be a fun matchup and everything. A good game to bounce back from Texas Tech and everything.
I'm curious too, Jojo, what gives you confidence that this team will bounce back? Because last year you guys had a loss and it snowballed into two, and you were part of that team. What gives you confidence this year will be different?
Because we already been through the things. We went through it last year, and that's just something that we just been really on top of not trying to let that happen again, not letting the snowball effect happen again. So just like, I know we took an L, but we can't let that affect us. We can't let the L beat us in the next game too, like we did last year. We kind of let our L Kansas kind of roll into the Arizona State game and beat us too. So.
Last thing for you, Joe, just been 2 months since you played a home game. How excited are you for Saturday?
I'm really happy. I can't wait to get back out there in front of Les, in front of the Rock, in front of our fans. It's been a long time. It's been a long 9 weeks, going on 10 weeks now since I've been in front of our home crowd and everything. So I've just been missing. I'm very happy and just very blessed that I get to come back and play and be healthy and stuff again.
Well, good luck, Jojo, and glad to see you back healthy, and looking forward to this Saturday.
Thank you. Looking forward to.
Looking forward to seeing JoJo and this BYU offense bounce back. They struggled mightily against Texas Tech, and JoJo acknowledged that. He did not play his best. Those drops, can't have that happen. Got to help Bear out. And Bear, I think he's due for a bounce back. I'm really curious to see how Bear performs this week against TCU, but we'll dive further into the matchup against TCU tomorrow on the show, and of course on Friday with the score predictions as well. But that's going to do it for this edition of Cougar Tracks. I hope all of you enjoyed it. Make sure to subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts, and we will talk tomorrow right here on Cougar Tracks. And it's powered by KSL Sports and KSL News Radio.